Hello, everybody. I'm Erick Alonso, co-founder of CO-RESIDENCY, and today we're going to have one more artist spotlight. We're going to be talking to the one and only Camila Svenson. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great. Camila, let's have a conversation about yourself, about your life, and let's start from the beginning. So where were you born?
Yeah, that's really the beginning, right? I was born in the countryside of Sao Paulo, the state of Sao Paulo, in a city called Bauru, which is a city that has now, I don't know, 500,000 people, but it feels like a small town. It has all the small countryside structure, even though it has 500,000 people. And I was born there. All my family is from there. And when I was 15, I moved to Sao Paulo with my mom and my sister. And now it's crazy that I've lived more in Sao Paulo than in my hometown city. I was just thinking about that the other day, like 15 years there and now 15 years here.
Oh, and that's where you're in the city now.
Yeah, I'm in the city now. Now I live in Sao Paulo.
Mm-hmm. And
Capital.
so the rest of your family, it's in the countryside at the moment.
Yeah. All my family from my mom's side is in the countryside, and my dad lives in Sao Paulo, but my main family is all there.
So during those first 15 years of your life, what was the contact that you have with art in general?
I didn't have any content at all, really. I didn't have any reference. I don't remember studying art or anything related to even photography. I didn't have a camera. I wasn't one of those kids who got a camera from someone of the family and started photographing from the beginning. I don't know. I think I was just a regular kid, whatever that means.
And was creativity somehow around you, like in your, well, every child, I think it's creative, right? But what's your connection? Did you remember having a connection with creativity back then?
I don't know what I understand by creativity, but I remember always creating these huge scenes, or I remember having all these like small toys from, I don't know, McDonald's and all this like plastic trash, and I would have them in a huge box. And I remember this feeling of creating situations and words, you know. I remember having this like huge red scarf that I would put on the floor, and this would be a river, and then in one side of the river there would be a town, and the other side there would be something else. So I remember spending a lot of time by myself, like with these small objects, creating situations.
And who was around you? Like, you have siblings or your cousins, or?
Yeah, I have a sister, I have cousins. We were born always like playing together, and my grandma used to live in this kind of farmhouse, and we used to go there, and I don't know, just like climb trees and go in the pool and walk in the nature. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that has an impact one way or another, being around nature. To me, growing up in Costa Rica, the contact that I have with nature stays with me when I need to reconnect and, you know, meditate. That's what I do. I used to go camping on the beach or something like that. I need that, right? And I remember living in China. I was living there for 4 years. At some point, I could feel the brick city on my back. Like, I was like, I need to see green. So what was the impact living in the countryside and going to Sao Paulo?
Yeah, actually, Bauru, my hometown, is not a city in the middle of nature. My grandma used to live in the nature, but the city, I feel that Bauru is a very plastic city. It's one of those new cities that new rich people move to, and then there's a huge reflection on architecture. So there's a lot of, I don't know, car stores and shopping malls, and I don't know, it's a city that is expanding through plastic, if you know what I mean. And is a very fictional place. I don't know, when you go to Bauru driving, the first thing that you see when you are getting to the city is a imitation of the Statue of Liberty. This one, you know, like made I think it's even like bigger than the real one. I don't know, and it belongs to a it belongs to a department store, which is right in the entrance of the city. So I don't know, it's just a very fictional place. I didn't have this notion of fiction when I was living there because I was a kid. I was just existing. But
it was your that's reality, yeah.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
reality.
it was what I had. But now every time I go back there, I have like this kind of fiction mode turning in my head. So I'm always like looking at things as if everything was absurd, and I don't know.
So then Sao Paulo was like waking up from that absurdity, was it, to some extent?
Yeah, yeah, and I think São Paulo, a lot of people who live in São Paulo often have this notion that São Paulo is a place where you need to go if you wanted to get it right, you know, if you wanted to be successful. And I don't know, I think São Paulo built it for itself this notion of it's the only place you can be if you want to get it done, you know. I think that this
place
is
where
like,
you can make it.
yeah, exactly. Same sense with I don't know, any capital in any country, I believe, like New York or I don't know, London. Whatever. Yes, but I don't know. When I moved here, I was just a teenager, and I just wanted to fit in, like because I just wanted to find a group of people and go inside this group and just live there and be invisible and fit in this place.
And when did you discover photography?
I don't think there was like a turning point. I think I feel that it was a process of I remember having photography in my school when I was 16, 17, and then I remember starting to feel just this feeling that images were something, and that images were a trigger to something. I just remember feeling this genuine interest in images. I don't know where it comes from. And then from that, I just started photographing with, I don't know, cyber shots and small cameras. And then after that, when I got into college, into university, I started to get more serious with photography. But even though I was just like, it was just a hobby, you know, it wasn't something that I was planning to do for a living.
Who was responsible? Who was responsible for giving you the first like camera?
I think I just got one like those small cameras teenagers had, you know, the Sony with the small ones, and then I would just like photograph everything around me, like my friends and my school and stuff like that. I don't even have these photos anymore. I don't know where they are. I would love to have them so badly, but I don't know, they just disappear with time.
But that love for photography grew to the extent that when you were gonna go for higher education, you went for photography, right?
Yeah, I remember. I think one of the first moments that I really felt that photography was something important. It's when I discovered this book from an Argentinian photographer called Alessandra Sanguinetti. I don't know if you know her, but then she has this book called The Adventures of Gilly and Belinda, which is two girls who used to live in a farmhouse next to her family house in the countryside of Argentina. And I remember looking at this book and just thinking that it was like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's just from that I just started to pay more attention to image and understand what are the images that are important and what can I do to also make the kind of image that I think are strong or important or whatever, you know.
And what is it that you did at the BFA when you did cinematography? Was it's film something that still is like you like to combine to your photography work, or was that something that you were interested in doing in 2013 and went for it, and it's like, oh, it's not my thing?
Actually, I chose this university because my mom said, "Oh, you need to choose something else to do as a career, and then you can have photography as a hobby. So choose something that has to do with it, but then can give you more possibilities." Because she couldn't understand the photography as something that I could actually do for a living, or I don't know. And then I choose, yeah, it's not even called cinematography. In Portuguese, it's called audiovisual, which is
Okay,
like
yeah.
a
AV,
cinematography
audiovisual.
with, yeah, it's like the reunion of all those functions in the film industry. And it was nice. I enjoyed it a lot when I was there, but I was always, I remember I had only one semester of photography class, and that was the best semester. And every time someone said something about photography, I would be, oh my God, this is what I want. And then it would be just like a little bit, you know. So I think I spent all my college trying to, trying to, you know, find photography inside what I was studying, but didn't have much. I think it was a very straightforward university as well. I don't know. You have to do either this or that. I don't know. It wasn't something hybrid, you know.
So going to nowadays, do you sleep next to a camera? Do you always have a camera around you? Do you carry it everywhere you go?
No, I used it to be that person. uh, I miss that person actually. But
Mm.
when I was studying photography later on in New York, when I was studying photojournalism and documentary photography, I used it to be that person. I was photographing like crazy. Everything. I would just, I don't know, go inside the subway and get off in a random station, just walk and
Mhm.
go inside places and talk to people. And then I did a lot of material at that time, and I was actually looking at those photos now. And I don't know why I stopped it. I feel that now I think more about images than I make them. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
but there's something about New York too that you need to have a camera around you, especially if you're like going there for the first time, or living there for the first time. It's every little single spot is golden, right? What did New York
yes.
give you? Other, well, you were talking about that, carrying your camera with you and being that person that you currently miss. But what else did New York give you?
I don't know. I think it was amazing for me to discover my style and my aesthetics inside photography, but
Hmm.
also gave me what I don't want to be as a photographer.
Oh,
Because
and
I
what
feel
is
that,
that?
I don't know, I feel that in the place that I learned photography, especially photojournalism, there is a very specific way of looking at stories. I feel that America wants to look at stories that have a nice end in photography. I
Hmm.
mean, you know, they want to see almost like a hero path, you know, like someone that struggles, there is a crisis, and in the end there's a solution, and this person gets everything right.
Yeah.
This is how I learned photojournalism. and and everybody was telling me that I need to find this kind of stories, and I don't know, it was just was good to study there and to learn from this in order to see that the kind of photography goes in another direction, that I want to do more with fiction and with, I don't know, I don't want to, how can I say that, I don't want to be the person in charge of the truth, you know.
Yeah.
And I think photography has this power. And I don't know, I think when you are studying photography, you also need to understand that you're not a neutral person, you know, that the photographer is not a neutral presence in the space. Like
Yeah.
who I am, the space I occupy in society, my privilege, everything has to do with with the image, you know. I cannot go to a place and just take photos and go away. that's it, you know.
Mhm. So after New York, you also did an MFA, right? Are you still doing the MFA, or did you finish that?
No, I quit
You
because
quit.
of I quit it because of money reasons.
Hmm.
Was I I thought that I could afford it, but then I figured that I couldn't. uh, but the time that I was there was interesting because I started to look at other materials and other stuff I could do with my work besides photography, you know. And then I
Hmm.
started to look at objects and I started to see what else I do at my work, what are my operations besides photography. Because photography, I think, is just a device in the middle of many things that I was doing and I couldn't notice before.
Hmm. So I remember we were talking once, and you were mentioning that you still do some photojournalism as, you know, to earn a living, right?
Yeah,
But as you were saying, you were more interested in something more artistic, and well, I would actually love to review some of your work together with you, so you can tell me more about it.
yeah, totally.
Um, so what is it like to work as a photojournalist right now? Is that something that you're
it's
enjoying?
it's crazy. I I enjoy the feeling of being outside with a camera because it's something that I wasn't doing much. And then when
Yeah.
I do it, I remember who the person I was about 4 years ago and how I love it to be with the camera taking photos. But at the same time, it's just crazy that sometimes you need to go for the more generic stuff in photojournalism. You have to sometimes illustrate a feeling. So I don't know, let's say, oh, the public transportation in Sao Paulo is crowded, so I have to go outside and photograph a crowded bus, and this goes with the story. So I don't know, it's just I don't see a lot of space to put all this like fiction and all this I don't know, my aesthetics inside it. I feel that when I'm doing photojournalistic work, I'm more straightforward. I want to have the work done, and in the meanwhile, if I have time in the assignment, I will do things for myself. You know, like a month ago, I went to one of those, how do you say, like those hospitals that they built it for the pandemic.
What is it? Temporary hospitals?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
like
for
a
the.
temporary hospital, and it was inside a soccer field, and it was just
Oh.
and then I felt that I was like in a science movie because you had like the green grass and you had like this really harsh uh, white light on the top and all those pupils in all those uniforms, and that was
Yeah.
so crazy. And then I did a lot of photography for myself also, just observing the space and what are the materials that you use to create these temporary places, you
Mhm.
know. And at the same time it looked like an office. Like the way they built it, like the way they placed the beds and the walls and everything, it looks like a office where people go and they have their table and they have like this fake plastic wall in the back. So I don't
Yeah.
know, it was just a crazy place to be.
It is. I think we're living in very crazy times.
Don't
I
tell
think
me.
one of the things that visual images that really stayed with me was in New York, they had these trucks like refrigerators where they put in dead bodies. They just didn't have room for them anymore, and that photo stayed with me. Like it just stayed with me.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think photojournalism is still something that has a tremendous impact. Just yeah, like that example with the trucks that I just gave. It's part of my
yeah.
subconscious now.
And
What?
it's good to be outside also because at the beginning of the pandemic, I felt that I was kind of losing touch with reality because I was seeing the news, but I couldn't relate. I couldn't actually see what was happening. And then when I went outside to start photographing stuff for the news, it was good to actually see, you know, see the hospital, see the people, see what's going on.
Yeah,
like
and I think it's
building a body for what is happening, because if you are just reading the news, you kind of construct this virtual sense of the world, and it's good to just see it in its physicality, you know.
I think it's becoming more evident how well, obviously you have broadcast news networks that have, you know, their left or right or whatever they are, but then that's their version of reality. And yes, if you get caught up in that cycle of news, it's very hard to pull yourself out of it. But then also it's very interesting to see all the different sides of people interacting with each other. People that deny that there's a pandemic and they go out and protest and say, I was just reading something about my hometown Costa Rica, where a group of people was protesting saying there's not a pandemic, and I'm like, even if you don't watch the news, like there's something happening that's bad enough, right? But yeah, it's like
the president of Brazil is the biggest denier of all time.
Still today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now he has coronavirus himself, but even though he has the fucking virus, I don't know.
He's still denying it.
He still denies the end of the world we're living. I don't think he denies, he knows it, but it's his interest for people to die, I think.
Yeah.
He wants that.
Yeah, I think one of the triggers that made you apply for this co-residency was the impact that obviously the world is changing. I like that when you were talking about it, you were talking about it's changing, my world is changing, or you were like giving a very personal perspective of it. But also you were talking about that being added to the political scene in Brazil. Like those two things together, you just felt like probably you needed a creative outlet, right, to say like what's happening, right? Well, good luck with that one. Let's encourage people to vote.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy times in terms of politics in the whole American continent, I think. What other things inspire you? Are you like when you're what are the things that make your creative mind go to places? Like in one case you were talking about that stadium with the temporary hospital in it, and you're describing the impact that had in you. Is that something that is constantly happening with you, walking down the street and you see a beam of light, and you're like, oh, that's something there? Is that how Camila Svenson sees the world?
Yeah, I don't know if I understand much about inspiration. I think it's more about a state of attention, you know,
Yeah.
to be aware. And I think that's how I put myself in the world. I'm just aware of things, and when I walk down the street, I'm just unconsciously paying attention to, I don't know, to places and people and the movement. I don't know. I think I just like walking, and I like writing down things that I hear. I don't know if I'm in the bus and a woman says something in the cell phone that I feel that that's me. I'm gonna write it down. So I have like all this, a collection of notebooks that are like French things, you know, with all like these notes and things that I hear or places that I went through. And then I feel that I just take these notebooks after, and from it I can see where I can build new words, you know. I think these notebooks are my biggest inspiration, if you could say that. I write down everything. I have a collection of things that I see, and then afterwards I open the notebook and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I can go back to this place, or maybe I can do something else with that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Another topic that's important, I guess, to you, well, and obviously to me as well, is the LGBTQ community. And one of the topics that you're dealing with specifically for co-residency is that sense of affection during COVID-19 and like physical touch and all of those things. Well, first, what has it been like to grow up in the LGBTQ community in Brazil? And has had that any impact whatsoever with your art?
Yeah, actually, uh, I I belonged to for a very long time to the heterosexual world.
Yep.
Since I was like 20, 22, I used to have these friends with high heels and long blonde hairs, and we used to go to nightclubs. And I don't know. I used to live in a different world. For me, when I remember now, it feels that I was in another universe, in another layer of the planet that I can no longer access. But I don't know, when I realized that I wasn't part of that, that I was part of something else, was so good. Was so good to go. Was so good to start going to places where I could recognize myself a little and have at least a slight sense of belonging. You know, it,
But what, like when you were 22 and you were going out with these people to these places, uh, were you sure that you like were you exploring your sexuality? Like, I don't know. This is a different conversation, but I just find it
yeah.
interesting. Or is it after 22 that you were like, oh, actually, this is not who I am? Because to me, it was like I was 4 or 5 years old and I knew that I was different.
Yeah, I feel that I didn't had any reference at all before, anything. I don't remember having a single gay person in my school. I don't remember
Yeah,
watching movies. I didn't have a place to understand that the life could be somewhere else, you know. And
yeah.
and basically the first girl who hit on me, I kissed her, and that was it.
Mhm.
You know, like the first opportunity that I had to kiss a woman, I did it in my life,
Yeah.
and then after that, things happen. But
I think that,
I don't know.
yeah,
We live in a heterosexual world. You know, when
yeah.
heterosexuality is something compulsory, and is also inside all the structures that our world is built. So you could live in that world for a long time because and don't realize it if you
Yeah.
don't have reference.
It's so important to have those references. Representation is important, and it's important to have those references. And I think I relate to that feeling of not having mirrors to look at yourself in when you're growing up. One of my biggest um, uh, now that I'm an adult, I say, why nobody, when they were teaching me about Leonardo da Vinci, why people didn't tell me that he was gay? Like, why are people omitting that important part about himself? I mean, and the same with many other artists, right? In history, why nobody told me about that? Like, it would have been so interesting in my development to realize that these incredible people happen to be part of a community that I didn't know, but I belong to, right? And I think same with what we were saying earlier about when it comes to the cycle of news and people believe in different things and how those lines are becoming, you can see the separation. They're kind of blurry, but you can actually see them all interacting. Like it's kind of clearer now. And the same for, I think children growing up nowadays, they have more references. And even though there's still homophobia and all of those things, they can see a very strong representation in other areas. So the lines are there, but they're becoming blurrier and you can see like a wider picture, I think. But it's important. It's important in the art world, and it's important in the pop world, and it's important in all lines of society, right? And
Yeah, I agree.
how do you use your work? And maybe we could see some of your portfolio and talk about it after you
Yeah,
answer that.
sure.
Like, how do you use your work for, you know, LGBTQ related topics?
I think it's just a consequence. I feel that I can talk about many things and I can make work about other subjects, but since this is the place where I belong, I I'm gonna make work about it because this is who I am. You know, this is implicit in who I am. So it's just I feel that it's just natural to be interested in this world and understand this world as a place with a lot of bubbles and different spaces. Like I don't think there's like a universal LGBT community in Brazil or whatever. You know, I think we occupy different places inside the communities.
Because I wanted to go through some of your work.
Maybe I can share my screen here. Wait.
So this one is called 90 Blue Objects. So what was the whole process of this project?
Okay, so this project happened in Iceland when I was in an art residency in a town called Húsavík, where I did a piece on the teenagers from the town. And then meanwhile, it's a very small town. It has only 2,000 people living there. So I would go walking everywhere. There was no cars or anything. And I just started to find a lot of blue objects on the floor on my way to the studio or on my way back home. And then I was just like collecting these objects and then just putting them on the table and starting to make this small collection, you know. And then I did that for the whole process of the residence. It was just like this extra thing that I was doing besides photographing the teenagers. Maybe something to relax, you know, like to go on these blue expeditions on the city where I would just collect anything blue around me. And I don't know if you have been to Iceland, but it's a very blue place in my imaginary.
I
I was
haven't been, but
there.
what I was about to say is that in the back of my head, like in my psyche, when I think if I would have to assign a color to the country, it would be blue.
Yeah, let me just show you. Yeah, like this is the landscape, you know, everything's blue, and it's not a blue that I have ever seen in my life. It's just this fictional blue and really sad. And I don't know, I was just obsessed with the color blue when I was there. And by a coincidence, I was also reading a book called Bluets, which is from a writer called Maggie Nelson, and it's basically a book about the color blue, and she talks about blue, and she says that she's doing a book about blue. And this is what is the book about, very genuine and very simple. And then this project was that I was just this action of walking and collecting objects that have the color blue on it.
On the
And then
streets of Iceland.
yeah, and then first on the streets, and then after that, I was just asking people around if they had something blue they could borrow me. And then I set this small studio uh, on the place I was working, and then I just photographed all the objects in a white background to have it because I knew that I don't remember. I think I couldn't take all the objects with me on the bags. There was some stuff that was from someone else, so I just photographed them as a just to register, you know, just to have that in a file and remember.
And then also you have a section on the portfolio where you mentioned you photograph like the students or the teenagers, right?
Yeah, uh, here it is. So this was like the main project of the residence, uh, and where I would just I don't know, photograph teenagers. I don't know why I wrote out this proposal for the residence. I felt that I wrote in a very random way. I was just like, okay, I want to go to this place. What can I photograph there? Teenagers was really something random that came to my mind. And then when I first got there, I met this girl. Where is she? This one. She's called Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
And then she introduced me to some of her girlfriends, and then her friends introduced me to someone else. And then when I realized I was in a pizza party in someone's house, and with those Icelandic teenagers, talking in Icelandic, and I was a Brazilian who speaks Portuguese. I don't know, it was so crazy. It was really out of this world. But then I got close to this group of girls, these ones that you can see. These were the girls that I photographed most,
Hmm.
and I don't know, it was just so beautiful.
Is
I
it,
don't
but
know
it's,
what
is this, but I'm not sure if this is deliberate, but that's like, there's like a very specific palette to even like the desk and the clothes they're wearing and everything, right? Uh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that Husavik and Iceland have a very specific palette of colors
Yeah, right.
as well, and it have to do a lot of my own palette of colors in photography. So maybe
So,
this is what I was seeking when I was staging people for the portraits. I don't know.
and what happens with Camila Svenson in these moments? Like, is this speaking to, because you're exploring teenagers in Iceland, but are you, I love this one, because even the light on the inside the car is, it's great. But are you revisiting your own teenage years or reinterpreting your teenage years when you're exploring this?
I think somehow I think yes. uh, I recognize that a lot of my friends from when I was a teenager on these girls. I don't know why, because they are so far away from anything that has to do with my country. But and I don't feel that people grow up in a universal way, but there was something, there was a feeling. Maybe the feeling was inside my head, and I was just looking for that feeling on these people that I was having contact with. But I remember going to this party. It's like a country ball. They have it, I don't know, once in every 6 months. uh, the ball is in a huge, not huge, like a wood saloon outside of the city, and other schools from around would go there, and it's just like this regular teenager party where people are like drinking vodka in the parking lot and throwing up and kissing and singing to Jovi, and it was such a crazy moment because I felt that I didn't felt that I was a teenager, but I felt that I had cut a slice of time, and I would just be like looking at my a situation that I also live in.
Yeah.
And, and the project was that I think there was not enough time to build a strong connection with those people. They were really helpful. They were like up to the photos. They did let me go inside their houses. It was amazing. But I think it was just like this fiction that I was creating based on what I was seeing there and what are my own experiences as a teenager growing up in a small town as well.
Can we also look at, there is some project that you were doing where you, for some reason, you were finding out notes, like random notes that people lost, and you were collecting them. And maybe
Yeah,
we can see some minutes of the video where I think you have the notes on one side, and then,
yeah.
but you,
Let me
at the same
let me
time,
just
you
the
burn them,
video.
right?
Yeah, let me just.
So maybe we can look at the notes. So,
Okay.
but well, tell me the story. Like you were walking around and finding these, like these objects as well, right?
Yeah, this was actually part of a residence I was doing in Sao Paulo,
Mm-hmm.
and the project was really different from this final piece. And in the beginning of the project, I was just I remember, how was it? I just I just created rules for myself to follow every week. So in a week, I would go to parties which I hated. In the second week, I would talk to people that I was in a relationship with. In the third week, I would just collect notes. I was just like creating this random rules for myself in order to, I don't know, do something in Sao Paulo. Because I always felt that it was really difficult to create in Sao Paulo. Maybe because it's the place where I live and it's the place where I'm all the time. So I just set myself these rules. And then I started to collecting all these handwritten papers that I found on the floor. And I really found really interesting stuff. I don't know. It's not that I'm like supposed to find stuff. It's my destiny. But somehow I did found a lot of stuff, and some mysterious stuff, and some weird stuff, and some
So
whatever
what are
stuff.
some examples? Because they're actually in Portuguese, I think. So is
Yeah.
it like love confessions or like I don't know,
Uh,
death threats?
yeah.
What's on the papers?
Most all of them most are really like straightforward things. But let me just wait. This one is like Merry Christmas. I love it. And a lot of notes with name of people written on it. I love this one, which is a kiss on lipstick. Uh, this one is I don't know. In English would be like fucker, like you fucker, like yelling at someone. And next to this one, I found another one saying I love you. So it was really crazy because every time, sometimes I was just in a place, I don't know, random place, and then I was just feeling, oh my God, I need to go home walking for some reason. And then every time I would choose to go home walking, I knew that I would find something. I'm not kidding. And then when I found it, I was just like, here it is. That's it.
And there's almost something voyeuristic about it because you can make a whole story about who's the owner, like what's this person like, why who was she or he calling us crota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning, I felt that I was doing that because I was really, I don't know, obsessed with photography, and then I wanted to create, I don't know, photographs from every single node, kind of like illustrating all the nodes and creating like this huge map, like this narrative with photography. But then I understood that this work is only about walking. Same with the blue objects. It's about walking, collecting, and organizing.
So
And
what's this
then
person doing? Is it like
this is
7 buckets of uh,
this is like a how do you say,
like firework powder?
no,
Is
it's just this list of things that this person have to do in order to find a love. Like those things, like when you go to like this mysterious woman and then she says, oh, you have to light a candle and write down the name of a person you like and throw in the ocean. You know what I mean?
oh, like or
Like
almost
a
like a witch. Like you go
incantation.
to a witch and they make a oh, got it.
Yeah. I think it's like two teenager people talking through notes, because they're like
Mhm.
different letter types, and they're just talking about, oh, you read the book? No, I didn't. You are going to the party of that person? No, I'm not going. But yeah, and then I don't know. I think I just got really obsessed with collecting. I remember always like walking, looking down the street every time, and starting to be this weird person who would have trash on her bag.
So then,
uh,
in the end, what you did,
where
it's this video where you burn all of those notes, right? Almost like what I felt about it is that you were almost saying like, oh, you broke the intimacy of these people. I don't know, like you had these personal notes from them, and now it's time to let them go, right?
Yeah, exactly. I I
Yep.
remember
Can we just
feeling
play it
this.
for a little bit?
Yeah,
So where's this ocean?
this ocean. Where is the volume? Just a second. This ocean is next to Sao Paulo in
Mm-hmm.
a place called Guarujá. It's like 1 hour from here. And I don't know. I just felt that it was important. I think rituals are really important, and having a
Mm-hmm.
ritual that synthesize the end of something. Uh, and I don't know. I just felt that I needed to put an end on this collection, and I felt that I had too many ghosts in my house living with me, and it was important to just have a simple ritual in order to starting something else. That was it. And they
Yeah,
go
yeah.
away so quickly. It's just like in 10 minutes, 3 years of walking were
Oh, it
gone.
was 3 years altogether.
Yeah. It was so fast how things disappear. I don't know.
Yeah. 3 years of random notes, so many different people, so many like different thoughts, right? And
Yeah.
then just letting them
Yeah.
go.
And I don't even think about the people that wrote the notes. I think the notes are independent beings, you
Oh,
know. They're just, I don't know, independent. Yeah, and that was it.
there's this other project on your portfolio, and I think it's towards the bottom where you are photographing um, different women, I think, and I think it's the last one,
This one?
and that also has a video. Yeah, can we talk about that one?
Yeah.
Because I really like it because, well, I'm just basically scrolling down your portfolio and I'm looking at all these different characters. Obviously, there's also like maybe the notes, or I don't know what this is, and then you have the video, and then on the video there's some interviews. I don't understand what they're saying because it's in Portuguese, but
Yeah. We need
there's something
subtitles.
interesting because I think there's 2 or 3 characters that where the girl is wearing some religious message on their t-shirt, and I think they're talking a little bit about something related to religion. And so I wanted to talk about this project because what I love is that I'm looking at the photos, and the photos are almost like an introduction to the characters, and then you see the video and you're like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah. So this project is on teenagers from Brazil, and I did it with my collective with Petala, which is a friend, and then we have a photo collective together called Amapoa, and then we
Mm-hmm.
work commercially together, and we also have like some personal projects such as this. This project happened because we got a grant from a university in Amsterdam, and then we wanted to do a piece focusing on the ritual of being a teenager in Brazil and observing different teenagers from different areas in order to understand the memory of a country, you know, in order to understand society, or at least to observe. I don't know if we understand anything. I think it's just a matter of observing. And then we just started. We did the project in Sao Paulo and also in the north of Brazil in a city called Belém, which is in the
Mm-hmm.
state of Pará. And we just went to this is a girl getting ready for her quinceañera, 15-year-old
Mm-hmm.
party.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, I don't know, we went to teenagers parties and follow some friends like hanging out in a park. We went to their houses. We photographed their bedrooms, and at the same time, like meanwhile, we also did the video. So we would do the like an interview with all the teenagers that we photographed first, and then after we would photograph. So I think the video was like the first step in order to get to know that person, and then the photos would happen later.
Mm.
And these are some boys in the 15-year-old party.
Why are they separate from the like boys on one side, girls on one side, like when you're in the
I don't
scene
remember.
where that
Yeah,
that's so funny.
I, Yes, I think that's how it happens.
Was
Still,
this before or after Iceland? This is after Iceland, right?
it was after Iceland.
Because it's interesting to
And
see both in contrast, like the Icelandic teenagers versus the Brazilian teenagers. Was that deliberate?
yeah, I feel a lot I think that it has a lot of connection. I I think that after Iceland, I really got obsessed with this idea of being a teenager and observing teenagers as an excuse to talk about time, you know, because I was doing this project when I was turning 30 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just crazy to think about time and somehow revisit the situations with these other people we are photographing. And I don't know, I think this is a project is about time. It's about observing time, what are the rituals, observing what are the connections, affection. Because I think when you are a teenager, you have this really like strong bond with your friends that you think
Yeah.
that it never is never gonna go away. No, I think it's
Yeah,
so
and it's
like
almost it's impossible to recreate, right?
yeah. Yeah, and I think these photos are from an outsider, you know. I'm not one of them. I don't belong on
Yeah.
these situations. I'm just observing, and I think it's beautiful. And then the
Can we
video,
see? Yeah, can we see a minute or two from the video?
yeah, this video is just like a test. We haven't edited the full thing yet because there's a lot of material we didn't have time to look at. But we did like a compilation of situations and
So how do you approach these people?
uh, I think when we started, we started to post on Facebook and Instagram. We are looking for teenagers from different areas of Brazil, and if you know anyone, and then I don't know, and then we
And then
had like this.
when you're talking to them here on the video, what are you asking them? So in your
Uh,
process, is this when you're getting to know them before you take the photo? Is that correct?
yeah, I think I always start with a conversation uh, on many projects that I do. Um,
So
I
what's
don't
this
know.
girl saying when we're interviewing her?
Uh,
Or what
She's
do you
saying
ask
that
them?
she I don't remember what we asked, but she's saying that she's alone, like she was born alone and she's by herself, you know. And there's one
Mm.
interesting here. Let me just see if I find it. I think I we asked
What?
questions we didn't know the answer. You know, like what
Yeah.
is time? What is the biggest mystery of the world? What is love? Like when was the last time you cried? I don't know, just
But
questions that we wanted to
who's the
talk about.
girl? Like the girl right behind before this scene. There's this girl that
Uh,
starts singing a song, and I think it's a
yeah,
religious. And then she has a T-shirt that says something like "Christ the King" or something like that. And I'm like,
yeah.
what
There's
is
a
this?
no. She's a girl who lives right outside Belém in one of the
Mm-hmm.
because Belém is surrounded by a river and there's a lot of communities who live next to this river. And this girl,
Yeah.
she lives in a house outside Belém next to the river,
Mm.
and she belongs to a church, and she's part of the church, and she likes to sing. Like she says that her dream is to be a singer,
Mm.
and then we just asked her to sing a song, and that's what she did.
Okay. So what with the Icelandic teenagers, you were you able to do a little research the same way? or you had a cultural barrier and you were
Yeah,
sort of making your own interpretations?
yeah. I think Iceland was something more straightforward. You know, I was there
Mhm.
for only 3 months. I just wanted to make photos. I don't feel that I wanted to. We did talk a lot because I would go to their houses and I would have their first photo on their bedroom. This is how I did it. I would usually start with the bedroom and visiting the person's house because I think it's better that way. And then we would just talk, and then I would be like, "Oh, but who is your friend? Who is your boyfriend? Can I take a photo of you two together?" It was something more simple, and I feel that here, uh, I think especially because we speak the same language, and it's also in Brazil. We wanted to go further. We wanted to really like talk to these people and have these interviews and have these compilations of interviews and all these materials that we could, I don't know, think about it later.
So going back to the work that you're doing, it's
Yeah,
capturing something that it's we don't have many things to compare it against, right? Or, um, what have you found out so far? What's in the conversations that you can feel like you can reveal during this conversation?
yeah. I don't know. At the beginning, I was trying to create like a script of questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would be much more like a formal person interviewing that woman. But then afterwards, I just let it go, and then I would just let the conversation go whatever it had
Yeah.
to go, you know. Like there was a woman that we started to talk, and then she told me about her entire life, and I didn't have to ask one question. Another
Mm.
girl, we were talking about video game because she's into video game, and then she was talking about Batman and fiction and how she can relate the way Batman is with fiction. Another woman, she just played a song, you know. So I think that's the most beautiful thing about this work. It's just like having, just letting the work be about the conversation and don't worry about uh, what people need to say, because I think with photography there is so much control. Like I want things to be exactly that way, and I know how to make a photograph look sad or melancholic or happy. Like I know how to do that because I'm in control of my image. And here it's just like I'm not in control of anything, and I'm also exposing myself. It's not only it's a conversation. So like people ask questions to me as well, and I'm not the most social I'm not interviewing people because I'm super social and I love talking, and I'm not social at all, you know. Like it's hard to, it's uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
but it's also interesting, and I like that it's uncomfortable and it's not normal, you know.
Well, we'll see in like 4 weeks the final
Yeah.
outcome. Would love to also have a conversation with you and talk about it. Um, I'm gonna ask you some questions, and these are questions that I ask every artist at the end. And this comes from an interview. Whenever James Lipton would finish his interviews for the Actors Studio, he would have this list of questions that he actually took um, uh, from a French TV presenter, but the actual questionnaire comes from Proust, right? So we took some of those elements and we make our
Okay.
own questions, and those are the ones that we're asking you guys. So if you're ready, then I'll just start asking you those questions.
Okay.
Camila Svenson, who is your favorite artist?
I don't know. I'm always looking at different artists, and but one that always remain is Sophie Calle, the
Hmm.
French artist. I like how she deals with fiction. Really like.
Camila, who's your favorite heroine or hero, fiction or nonfiction?
I don't know if I like the word hero, but I think LGBT people who resist, they are doing something that is
we
better
stand,
than being heroes. Yeah,
we stand on
no
their
matter who they
shoulders,
are.
really.
Yeah.
What's your favorite word and your least favorite word?
Ish.
What's your favorite
I think
word
you're
and your least favorite word?
it's not working.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, so what's your favorite word and your least favorite word?
Uh, Fiction and fiction.
Okay. What turns you on and what turns you off?
uh, I don't know. I like people who like specific things. I don't know what that means. What turns
Mhm.
me off? Uh, I don't know. The advertisement word, plastic conversations, mirror
What's
buildings.
That's so funny because it's the description that you gave to what was the name of like the neighborhood where the Statue of Liberty and
Yeah.
what sound or noise do you love and what sound or noise do you hate?
I don't know. Right now, I just love the sound of silence, extreme silence.
Yeah.
And I hate the noise of all the four constructions that are happening around my house every
What's your
day.
favorite place? Yeah. What's your favorite place in the world?
Uh, I think the mountains that I saw in Iceland,
Hmm.
those specific mountains, are my favorite place.
What inspires you to continue doing your work?
Uh, I don't know. It's just good to because I feel that every work that I'm doing, I have the chance to be somewhere else and someone else, as if I was experiencing other stuff. This is what moves me, maybe inspires me.
What's your idea of happiness and your idea of misery?
Uh, I don't know. My idea of happiness right now would be to drink a beer outside on the sidewalk. you know, I think that's the only ideal happiness that I have right now. I don't know if I can talk about misery. I don't feel ready for it.
What does this global crisis mean to you?
Uh, I also don't know if I can understand a meaning
Mhm.
when I'm right in the middle of it. Maybe something that I would have an answer in the future. I hope.
Miss Svensson, can you complete these sentences for me? Art is.
Uh, so difficult. Uh, is a traduction, tradução,
Mhm. Art allows me to.
to work with things that I feel that are important.
Without art,
I don't know. I'm just a photographer covering events, you know, covering a happy hour of a company somewhere in Sao Paulo.
we're very lucky to have you as part of our first cohort. Thank you very much for your time, and
Thank
please
you.
continue exploring that internal world and exploring that external world, because whether it is interpreting the manifestations of teenage years in Iceland or in Brazil, or picking up papers, or even the film that I've seen you doing. It's just keep doing it, please. We're very lucky to have you with us.
Thank you so much. And we
We'll
talk
talk
soon.
soon.